So this might get me kicked out of the stream, but I've been listening to some James White recently, and
Okay.
it seems to sound biblical.
So just because James White is right on the Trinity, right on Jesus being God in the flesh, and he's right on exposing Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, how does it make him right when it comes to salvation as well as end times? It doesn't. I've heard his arguments. I used to be a 5-point Calvinist. I used to read his books. His arguments are jokes. But coming back to the issue, do you all think that Jesus died only for the elect?
That's
So you actually think the Bible teaches that Jesus died only for the elect. Why?
right.
So there is no passage, let's just be clear, that says Christ died only for group X. Even when it says that Jesus died for the sheep, does it say only the sheep?
No.
So I'm going to take certain passages that say Jesus died for the bride, Jesus died for the sheep, and assume only them, but then ignore the passages where it says Christ died for all, died for the world, and then explain those to me, and it doesn't really mean all in the world. And by the way, do you think that James White knows more than John Calvin, the namesake of his system?
Probably.
You probably?
Considering the time that we're living in now and access to technology, he probably does know.
Oh, so a man who knows Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, and Latin, reading the same Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek copies, he's at a disadvantage because we have accordance and Bible software like Logos. Because when he explains to me John 3:16, he tells me that the Greek pas means everyone. Anyone and everyone who believes will be saved. He says this is an invitation for the whole entire world. And he bases it on the Greek. So what in the Greek shows that James White is right and that John Calvin is wrong? Because using your logic, even Greek lexicons say John Calvin is right because the word pas, where it says pas o pestevon, pas means whosoever, whoever. So obviously having accordance and logos didn't give James White an advantage over John Calvin because John Calvin knew that without accordance and logos because he says it right here. This is John Calvin. In fact, are you aware not all Calvinists are 5-point Calvinists and not all Calvinists think that Christ only died for the elect?
Yeah.
There are Amyraldians who are 4-point Calvinists who think that Christ did die for all. So, but wait, they're Calvinists. They know Greek and they have the same software you do. Why are they wrong? But what about the term world? Remember, world doesn't always mean, we know this, dude. That's why he even used the term world. Why, John Calvin? Which he formerly used. For though nothing will be found in the world that is worthy of the favor of God, there's nothing in the world that would move God to be favorable towards the world. Yet God, he shows himself to be reconciled to the whole world when he invites all men without exception to the faith of Christ. So damn, I guess John Calvin wasn't a Calvinist, or at least he wasn't a Calvinist to James White's liking.
Okay.
And then if Calvinism is true, you're dead in sin, right? You're already a slave to sin, right? Sin already has you, right?
Yes.
Explain how the hell this makes sense in Genesis 4:6-7. The Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to dominate you, but you must rule over it. But if Calvinism is true, Cain was born dead in sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sin already had him, right?
Yes.
Now, make sense out of this. It says, it desires to dominate you. It still hasn't, and you can conquer it. How the hell does this make sense if I'm born dead in sin?
Well, I wouldn't know what the Calvinist argument against that would be.
Like this destroys the Calvin because you ask Calvinist, am I born dead in sin? Yes. Sin already controls me from conception? Yes. So I come out of my mother's womb, slave to sin? Yes. This says you're a liar and you're a Bible pervert. Right?
I guess so.
And if I'm dead in sin and Jesus has to regenerate me in order for me to obey him, because if he doesn't regenerate me, I won't obey him, and that Jesus only came to save the elect, can you explain these series of passages for me? Hold on. Okay. Explain these to me. Deuteronomy 5:29. Oh, that there were such a heart in them that they would fear me and always keep all my commandments, that it might be well with them, with their children forever. Okay, now, according to Calvinism, God knows they're dead in sin and cannot desire things of God, right?
Right.
So why is God wishing and desiring that they all had a heart to fear him and keep his commandments? Doesn't God know they're dead in sin and they won't have that kind of heart unless he gives it to them first?
Okay.
You explain it to me. Oh, that there were such a heart in them. But God, they can't have a heart in them unless you give it to them. So why are you desiring something you know they cannot attain to unless you give it to them? Is God play acting?
No.
All right. How about Isaiah 48:18? Oh, that you had listened to my commands. But wait, isn't total depravity means you're dead in sin and slave to sin and you cannot submit to God's commands, nor do you want to unless he gives you a heart to desire his commands?
Let's see.
So why is God saying, as you're breathing hard, oh, that you had listened to my commands, and your peace would have been as a river, and your righteous ways of the sea. But you can say, wait, hold on, God. They cannot listen to your commands unless you circumcise their ears and open their hearts, make them alive, according to Jamila White. So why are you aching and desiring and hoping that your people would listen to your commands when you have to do the work of regeneration? So is God play acting again?
No.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a few more. Psalm 81, 8-13. Okay. Hear, O my people, and I will testify against you. O Israel, if you would listen to me. But I would say, hold on, God, we can't listen to you. According to Jamila White, we're dead in sin, enslaved to sin, and we don't desire to listen to you and cannot do so unless you make us alive. So why are you telling us listen to you when you know we can't?
Right.
All right. There shall be no strange God among you, neither shall you bow down to any strange God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people will not listen to my voice. Well, they can't. James White says I'm dead in sin. Don't you understand? James White has accordance, logos, and he knows Greek, and he teaches church history. God, come on, God, give me a break. James White has accordance, logos, right? And he was a critical consultant for the New American Standard Bible 1995 edition. Don't you understand how great he is? And he's telling me, right, I can't listen to you. So why are you shocked? Why are you disappointed? Why are you angry? But my people will not listen to my voice. Israel will not submit to me. So I gave them up to their stubborn hearts to walk in their counsels. Oh, that my people listen to me and Israel would follow in my ways. God, why are you so sad and heartbroken that we can't listen to you and that you wish we did, but now you're going to punish us and hand us over to stubborn hearts when we're already dead in sin and incapable of listening to you? So why don't you then give us a heart to fear you? Can you explain that to me?
No.
Okay, now, Calvinism says, 5 points of Calvinism, let me be more specific.
Yeah.
Jesus only came to save the elect and die for the elect, and the elect will be regenerated, made alive, so they'll turn to Christ and be saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if God doesn't regenerate you, you cannot turn to him, right?
Yes.
Okay. Please explain it. By the way, you know I'm giving you these passages? These were the passages that were causing me nightmares as a Calvinist because I kept reading them, trying to explain them away, and I said, enough, I won't do it anymore. Now, explain to me. Jesus is not a play actor, right?
No.
Now, explain to me, why is he crying over Jerusalem if he doesn't mean it? Look, Luke 19, 41, 44. When he came near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if you, even you, had known even today what things would bring you peace. So he's crying for the city because they don't recognize that he had come to bring them peace, right?
Yes.
But now they are hidden from your eyes. Now I'm going to hide them from you as a consequent punishment for your sin. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment around you and surround you and press you in on every side. They will dash you and your children within you to the ground. They will not leave one stone upon another within you because you did not know the time of your visitation. So Jesus is heartbroken and crying, saying, if you, Jerusalem, only knew why I'm here. I came to bring you peace, but you didn't recognize this was the time in which I came to visit you with salvation. And now that you haven't recognized who I am and rejected me, you leave me no choice but allow your enemies come and destroy you and your inhabitants. And he's heartbroken and crying. So, number one, if Jamila White is right, Jesus only comes to save the elect, right?
Right.
And the elect will turn to him, right?
Right.
Why is Jesus crying and heartbroken over the fact that he came to give all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, all of them, peace, and they didn't recognize who he is, and now he's heartbroken because he has to hand them over to punishment, because if he only came for the elect cannot be destroyed and will turn to him. So why is he crying?
I don't think a Calvinist could answer that.
Secondly, if total depravity is true, you're dead in sin and cannot turn to Christ. Why is Jesus heartbroken and crying over the fact that his people did not recognize him, when if Jamila White is right, they can't recognize him? They're dead in sin and Christ has to make them alive. So why is Jesus heartbroken? Why doesn't he make them alive to recognize him?
That's a good point.
So stop buying into the garbage of Calvinism. The first to present his case seems right until his neighbor comes in question. This is just some of many. So, and did you know that the early church history, up until 407 AD, all Christians taught God desires salvation of all creatures, and he endowed man with the ability to choose, and that the Spirit will then convict you and draw you to then make that choice to accept Christ, but you could reject him. It wasn't until after 407 AD that one man, Augustine, argued for a hardcore form of predeterminism, whereas the Christians before him, and even Augustine himself, taught no, God wants all to be saved, and he's given man the ability to choose or reject him. And even after Augustine adopted that view, the majority, consensus of Christians, went ahead with what Christians before 407 taught. Did you know who taught predeterminism? Do you know who taught that all things are predetermined?
No.
The Gnostic Manichaean pagans, who took their Gnostic philosophy and then mixed it in with Christianity. It was a Gnostic teaching, not a teaching of Christianity. And Christians were condemning the Gnostics, the Manichaeans, a form of Gnosticism, for trying to marry their form of predeterminism with biblical Christianity.
Okay. Later
Well,
flowers.
this one caused a scandal because my buddy, his name is Warren McGrew. He actually used Jeremiah 19:5 in a context that became known as the scandal of Baalgate. What does it mean? Let me get you his channel. You got to go here. Idol killer. He's a nightmare. He too annihilates Calvinism. God has causally determined everything, even the raping of children, even the murder of children, like abortion or children sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now, watch here. All I want to know is, please explain to me, if Calvinism is right, James White's Calvinism is right, God has already causally determined in eternity everything that place, even the evil atrocities, and God so works in the will of man to do the evil that he's determined, such as child sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But explain this to me, Jeremiah 19:4-5. Because they have forsaken me, Jeremiah 19, verse 4-5, and have profaned this place by making offerings in it to other gods, whom neither they, their fathers, nor the kings of Judah have known, and have filled this place with the blood of the innocent, and have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come into my mind. Is God lying?
Oh, I have not come across this passage.
Is God lying?
No.
Because according to Calvinism and John Calvin, God already in eternity, it already entered the mind of God to decree in eternity that people would sacrifice their children to Baal, and he so worked in their wills to then bring about this wicked evil that God decreed in eternity. So either God is telling the truth or God is lying.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I don't feel torn.
No, I want to know, because you're going to be a Calvinist. You better deal with this, because your Calvinism says God already decreed in eternity that there would be people to sacrifice their children to Baal and Molech to bring about a greater good. So it entered his mind and he did decree it. So either he just lied because he said it did not enter my mind, nor did I ever decree this. Is he lying?
No.
But no, your Calvinism says he is lying because he did decree it. He decreed it in his secret councils in eternity, known to him. You know what some Calvinists do with these passages? Because they see it's there, they can't deny it.
What's that?
They say, well, they talk about the two wills of God.
Okay.
So guys, let me show you how blasphemous, wicked this filthy system is. They admit these passages, and then they will say, well, that's because God has two wills, right? His decretive will and his desire. God decreed all of this evil. So there's one will in which God decreed all of this for his glory. But then there's this other will in God, what they call his revealed will or his prescriptive will or his desire, where he then makes known to you, I don't like this, don't do it. I like this and do that. But then there's that hidden will of his, that decree, where he decreed all the evil. So they come up with two wills of God. I'm not lying. The two wills of God. Here, you think I'm lying? Here.
I haven't heard of that yet.
Okay, well, here. So you can see, we're going to go John Piper. John Piper. Let's see. Hey, he's a Calvinist. Two
Yes.
wills of God. Voila. What are the two wills of God? There you go. Are there two wills of God? John Piper. John Piper's two wills of God. And then Leighton Flowers destroys it. Wait, God has two wills? You see? Leighton Flowers, why he's a godsend? All right, still not convinced? All right, here. John MacArthur. John MacArthur, do you believe God has two wills? His decree, the will known to him in his hidden counsels, where he decrees all the evil, even the rape and the murder of children? Yeah. And then God's prescriptive will or desire? Yeah. John MacArthur, another 5-point Calvinist. How many wills does God have? Oh, that's R.C. Sproul. See, he believed that. Gee. Does God, prayer change God? No, he doesn't believe that. Okay, so there you go. Taking the mystery out of knowing God's will. Again, what God has two wills? Okay, and he quotes you, John Piper and others. See, this is how they get around these passages. Good luck with your Calvinism, buddy, because you're going to pervert Scripture, twist Scripture, ignore Scripture, and you're going to blaspheme God because you're going to end up depicting a God who's a schizophrenic and a God who says one thing but does another. Therefore, he is no better than the Muslim God. So you can have that God. We're going to have the true God of Scripture, God revealed in Jesus, so it has nothing to do with the Calvinist God. So you can keep that God, buddy.
Yeah,
all
I
right?
don't know about that.
Well, go to Soteriology 101 and go watch the documentation. He quotes them in their own words, and you take it from there.
Alrighty.
All right, buddy?
I'll see if I could come back, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know, because bring me the specific objections so I can demolish, because I know the arguments about it. You bring it. But
Sure.
first, watch all the stuff I've done and go through Soteriology 101 and Idol Killer.
All right.
All right, brother?
All right. Sounds good.
Take care.